Okay, welcome to Friday Night Feels, everyone. I am your host, Patrick Monette, licensed mental health counselor and certified life coach. And welcome to episode 68 of Friday Night Feels. Just a gentle, friendly reminder to follow my YouTube page. So that way, if you want to catch any of the episodes or any of the podcast versions, you can as well on Spotify and all of the major platforms. Friday Night Feels is a show for men who want to create better connection and communication with themselves and the people close to them. Each episode will feature a guest expert that will take you on a deep dive into topics of men's wellness, including relationships and emotional well-being. My guest tonight is Sandra Cooze. So welcome to Friday Night Feels, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Such a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. We have so much to talk about.
You do.
So, Sandra is an expert trauma healer, certified traumatic incident reduction facilitator, intuitive mentor and coach, Reiki master teacher, and published author. Her mission is to is to address and heal trauma healing. She designed the full circle trauma healing method, a multi-modality approach that not only focuses on releasing the trauma that one has experienced, but also the trauma they've carried from them from ancestors and generations past. Her recently published book, Journey to Yourself: How to Heal Your Trauma, takes the reader on a journey through the mysteries of trauma and the effects it can have on body, mind, and spirit. While unraveling the concept of trauma, she lists helpful tools, leaves room for notes, and encourages her readers to work through the unique exercises she lists to support them on their healing journey. So I'm so excited. Where to go? There's so much to go. So what would you like to dive into of one of the conversations you and I have really had is about when a couple has experienced trauma and how to incorporate or practice intimacy after the trauma's occurred.
Yes. Well, this is a subject that really isn't talked about enough. I mean, in general, we all like to have sex, but we rather don't talk about it. And so when there's issues with intimacy, it usually gets ignored or put under the rug or never really addressed. And for couples, this can be really difficult, especially when you find the partner of your life and you want to really surrender into the relationship and grow and evolve as a couple, but
Right.
trauma is holding you back.
Right.
But then you're not open to talking about it because you feel ashamed, especially for women. We feel ashamed, we feel afraid if our partner may not love us anymore. Or if they may see us in a different light, if we say, well, we have been touched by another man against our will, we have been raped or whatever, how, if they would see us any different, if they would say, ew, no, thank you, that's too much for me.
Right.
So we usually don't talk about it, but we suffer in silence when it comes to being intimate.
Right.
Because believe it or not, even a trauma survivor wants to be intimate, and the body is like the culprit that says, no, we're being triggered right now, not going to happen.
Right.
And that's frustrating. But since we never talk about it, our partner will never know what's really going on. They think we're rejecting them when it was really not the case.
Right.
And so I find this subject so important to unravel because partners need to know what a trigger is and what active role they can actually take to help their partner through that, because they don't have to be helpless bystanders.
Right.
They can really help. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
That's so great, because I think one of the issues that I see a lot in the therapy and coaching and just in life is when something has previously happened to a partner, some sort of trauma, the other partner wants something to do. Tell me what to do. How do I fix this? How do I make it better? How do I take your pain away? And I think that leads to more of the stress of the trauma in the relationship of when they can't do anything or they feel that they can't do anything. Do you experience that at all with the couples you work with?
Yes. The helplessness that I see is overwhelming because you love your partner. Your partner is the one you chose to spend your life with. and yet you don't know how to help them. You see them struggle and you're like, okay, what can I do? How can I help?
Right.
And really showing them the tools, what they can do to help their partner. This is so empowering. Suddenly, this is not something that's unsurmountable anymore. It's something that's tangible. They can work through this, they can fix this together. And the new level of relationship intimacy they get from that, not just sexually, but with each other and how they treat each other, is phenomenal.
Right.
Because you go even deeper into the relationship and make it even better than you thought ever possible.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to ask you this because I love having this discussion. How do you define, or how do you classify intimacy between couples, in couples?
Well, I can tell you what is for me and my husband.
Okay.
We don't have secrets.
Okay.
We talk about whatever we want to talk about. It took us a long time to get there. Because most relationships, even the ones that you really are into, you go out for Valentine's Day and you make those little gifts and flowers and everything, it's still superficial because you are not willing to, or you can, for whatever reason, go into the deep discussions, talk about the uncomfortable things, be vulnerable. Just like those big fights that couples have, they're caused by one of the partners being triggered by something that happened maybe in their childhood, and the trigger just came back up. But they don't realize they're being triggered, they're just completely seeing red
Right.
against their
Right.
partner. And before you
Right.
know it, they're like in a huge fight, when really it was just a trigger. With the right tools, could have been released right then and there and helped the couple have an honest, calm conversation about what just happened. Right? So the deep conversations, the uncomfortable things, that's building an intimacy in a relationship that's simply wonderful. You feel so connected
And safe.
because you're not afraid to talk about, yeah, you feel safe, you feel connected, because there's nothing you would not talk about with your partner. And if you can't talk to your partner, who can you talk to?
Right. What happens in your experiences, and I can attest to this too, of how difficult it is when the traumas happen between the partners.
Right. Well, that is a whole different scenario.
Right. It's a whole other ball.
Then-
Right? It's how often does that, even if, for example, if it's the loss of a pregnancy or the loss of a family member that affects both of them, or the loss of a job, it doesn't necessarily, and I think sometimes people think trauma is something external that happens to you. It can also just be a life event that changes everything.
It's very true. Well, I've lost 3 pregnancies. And for my husband, it was very difficult to comprehend what I was going through, because I had life growing inside of me. I was excited for nurturing a baby for the next 9 months until it was born. And he didn't have the connection yet because he couldn't hear the heartbeat. He couldn't feel the kick or anything. So it was not real for him yet. Now, this is something when I work with couples, to make the partner understand what their partner is going through in this moment. So it's really all about knowledge, about understanding the perspective of someone else. But when you're in the trauma of losing a child, you're not open to a logic discussion about what you're feeling right now, because
it's raw.
You're not
the
capable.
rawest of raw.
Yes, it is hard in the moment, but it's very important that our partner is just there and just sits and waits until we're ready to talk. Just says, okay, you need to talk. I'm here whenever you're ready. Just opening this door, and then whenever that happens, be present, for God's sakes.
Right, which is difficult for a lot of people, isn't it? It's
yes.
It sounds nice, but I know how difficult it is.
Yeah.
To be that present, to be connected.
Exactly. I remember the first time my partner learned about the extent of the trauma that I went through in my life, how he had to digest that. That wasn't easy for him either.
Right. Did he want to do something? I find like men tend to want to do something.
Yep. It was at the beginning of my journey as a trauma healer.
Mhm.
I made a 2-minute video for an event where I talked about what I've been through
Okay.
and how that it's possible to heal. Well, until then, he didn't have any idea of the extent of what I was going through, just bits and pieces. But I showed him the write-up that I did to make sure like everything is okay, it sounds good. He read it. I held my breath. He put the paper down, came over and gave me the biggest hug he ever gave me.
Oh, wow.
So in a way, he showed me, I'm here.
Okay.
You're safe now. That's how he handled that.
And I'm with
And I'm
you.
so grateful. Yeah.
Because it's difficult when you've experienced trauma, you don't really want to talk about it.
Yes,
It-
exactly.
It's the last thing you want to talk about, but you have to fight that urge because it's just going to become like an infection or a poison that's going to consume everything that you touch.
Exactly. And the reason we don't want to talk about it is, first of all, we think that people may think it was our fault,
Mm. Hmm.
especially when it comes to sexual trauma,
Right.
right? And then how is our partner going to react? The fear that he would say, okay, no, I can't deal with this, that we are rejected.
Mhm.
There's so much going on within ourselves, but it's a trauma talking. That's the fear of being vulnerable, because being vulnerable and open is what got us in this mess,
Right.
kind of,
Right.
being too careless. Still not our fault, but we didn't think this would happen,
Right.
right? So it's a trauma talking to fear and pushing through and having an honest conversation is the most horrifying thing to do, because you're so vulnerable. Once you say the words, you cannot take them back.
Right.
And that's terrifying. But then I always say, give your partner a chance to prove that he can handle that.
Mhm.
All of you.
Do you see a difference between struggles with trauma with men and women? How they process that? Like, for example, I know you shared a little bit of your experiences, but it being National Mental Health, Men's Mental Health Awareness, I'm always just looking at different ways of how men process their traumas too, and it's totally different reactions. What are your experiences with that, of how men and women respond differently to trauma
Well,
within relationships? Sorry.
okay. Well, still to this day, men are taught not to show emotions. Just suck it up.
Right.
No tears. All the yada yada, which is ridiculous because they have to suppress a part of themselves. Emotions are part of who we are, and it only weakens us if we have to suppress them. So men who deal with trauma, usually what I see, get either very distant, they distance themselves,
Mhm.
or they get very angry. Anger is a mask for pain. And when a man gets angry, you can only imagine how much pain he is suppressing.
Mhm.
So when I work with couples and I see there's too much trauma, then I start working one-on-one with them
Okay.
and as couples. So release the trauma one-on-one and do couples coaching to help them move together in the right direction.
Right.
And usually when I start working with men, I have to teach them how to feel emotions first so that we can get to the emotions they're suppressing.
Right.
So which makes life
Not
easier
an-
with women because they're more open to emotions.
right, and that's not an easy task. It's
No,
basically
it's not.
asking them to learn a new language.
That's very true. And showing them that it's not weakness, that
Right.
tears are not a weakness.
Right. And also what I see too working with men is right along the lines of what you're saying is you can be emotional, but it doesn't mean you're not who you are. I think there's almost that fear of, well, if I touch in with my emotions, if I talk about my emotions, I'm not going to be me. And you're going to be more you than you can even imagine, because it's
Yes,
sort of, I talk about emotion sort of a little bit like a superpower. Like, you're holding yourself back,
that's so true.
especially in the realms of relationships, love and trauma, because then you can't be you. You're constantly holding back and sort of like
Mhm.
trying to hold the ocean back. and there's going to be
Yes,
consequences.
exactly. The thing is, what I teach my clients is your negative emotions are so important. We always try to suppress them because we're told to always smile and be happy. Don't worry about the bad stuff. It'll just work itself out.
Right.
Well, trauma and emotions don't just work themselves out. They're
Right.
going to fester until we focus on them or we
Yes.
explode, either one. But our negative emotions show us what needs healing. If there was nothing that needed healing, we wouldn't have negative emotions. We would constantly be happy,
Mhm.
but we're not. So there's something we need to work on. And then those emotions disappear on their own because whatever was bugging us, whatever trauma we had, whatever trigger we had is gone and will never come
Right.
back once it's released.
Right.
And then we feel lighter. We have the freedom to feel however we feel. And we don't have to worry about negative emotions anymore
Right.
because there's the balance as it should be. And
Right.
no, don't worry. When you're balanced with your emotions, you will never be over emotional.
Right.
So once you heal, you're always happy, you feel good, life is easier than you thought it would be because you're not dragging yourself down with worries and doubts and all those what ifs that never come to pass.
Right.
But you have to do the work first.
Right. So tell me more about this amazing program that you offer people and couples.
Well, in my trauma healing journey, I found my passion in helping couples create relationships that are the sanctuary that they were looking for. And it all starts with learning how to communicate. I mean, you really need to know how to talk to each other, how to be there for each other, how to listen. I mean, the first thing we learn in coaching is that you just sit there and you listen until the person is done, because then you already, they usually give themselves the answer already if you just let them talk it out.
Right.
Whereas when most of the time we listen either to reply. So while they're talking, we're already thinking about what to say after that. So we're not really listening to them at all.
Right. Right.
Then it is. Or we listen
100%.
to, yep, that's the trouble in relationships. Or we'll listen to patronize. So we want to say, well, you know what, was not that bad and everything. I'm playing it down, not really respecting what they're trying to say. Most men cannot handle female emotions. They're too dramatic.
Okay.
That's okay. That's why I'm here for. Because I will teach you to sit there and listen to your partner until she's done. And then just give it some thought. If it makes you uncomfortable, good, because that shows you that you have a trigger about listening to someone who is sharing their emotions. This is something to work on. To handle another person's emotion. Maybe it could be a childhood issue, where the mother says, don't be so emotional. Or, you know what? It doesn't matter what you feel. All
That
this
judgment.
dismissal and things like that. We're too busy. We don't have time for you right now.
Right. That
The little things
judgmental,
that parents,
just
yes,
shut it down, shut
exactly.
it down.
Exactly. Which is not good, but this is busy life, upbringing. And boys want to be loved just like girls. But they're raised differently. They're raised with a firm hand to be a strong man.
And it's powerful to see how many influences. So even if the family or the parents have taught, it's okay to feel that, then they go into the world. And it's a whole other thing of so many messages of be a man, be a big boy, big boys don't cry. I want a man, like all these different things that they, what it means to be a man. And then they try to do that to be a good man. And then all of a sudden their relationship's in peril.
Right. Well, if a woman is saying, well, I don't want to cry, baby, I want a man, she is not ready for a real relationship.
Right.
She wants that, well, I don't want to really put anyone into a category, but she wants that biker. She wants that dangerous person,
Right. Right.
Even though the bikers I know are the greatest people I know, so please don't take this personally. But she wants that danger. All women go through that until they're fed up, and then they marry someone just like their dad. I know I did. And I can't believe I did that.
Right.
But he's perfect.
So when someone enters your program, is it how does it work?
Well, first, we have, of course, a free consultation to get to know
Okay.
each other and talk about the program and what they want to get out of it and how I can help them. And then usually we start with coaching and about going over the issues. Maybe it's communication issues, maybe they have intimacy issues. Then we go directly to the source and address the intimacy issues. I give them action steps, what they can use to help each other, how to understand the issues with the intimacy. Once you understand that, you know what to do, because then it makes sense. We fear trauma because we don't understand it.
Hmm.
We are worried to ask the difficult questions because we fear the answers. So I help them, first of all, talk to each other. I mean, you can only have great sex if you really talk about your preferences, right? Don't make
Right.
it a guesswork for your
Right.
partner. Tell them exactly what you like and don't like, especially when trauma is involved. Because sometimes a certain touch triggers you. I know for me, when my husband sometimes touched me, I was like, ew, I
Hmm.
can't. I didn't know then that I was being triggered.
Right.
But luckily, he was the guy that says, you're saying hands off, my hands are off.
Right.
I was lucky in that regard. So it helped me a lot to process and heal. And it helped me understand the physical triggers, which means I can walk couples through what it means when a person is triggered, what you can do. For example, if it's like, okay, I can't right now, something is off, I feel icky. Your partner can say, okay, let's cuddle. Come
Right.
here, let me hold you. Because the thing is, when you have been especially sexually assaulted or raped, the only home you'll ever have, your body, has been violated,
Right.
which means your body doesn't feel safe anymore.
Right.
So in order to get back into surrendering into intimacy, you need to feel safe in your body again. So when you were trying to be intimate and suddenly a trigger hits and it comes out of the blue, there's absolutely no sign that it's going to
Hmm.
happen.
Hmm.
It just does. And you say hands off, and then you say, okay, let me make you feel safe. Come on, let's just cuddle. Let's just be here.
Hmm.
And you hold your partner in your arms, and maybe you stroke her arm a little bit, or you just talk, my goodness, about the weather or what you're going to eat next week. I don't care.
Right. Right.
But just something to get the mind off of the trigger. And usually that's all that's needed for the trigger to resolve. And you can continue with being intimate. The trigger is not continuously,
Mm.
and the more you do that, the more your partner will feel safe and release that trigger automatically, because the body learns there is no danger. Because the body learns, I say stop, it stops. So
Mhm.
I'm in control now. This is how we get our control back. This is how we feel safe in our body again.
Mhm.
And this is what the partner can do. And just that creates a new level of intimacy, not necessarily physical, but
Right.
the whole spectrum,
Right.
because your partner keeps you safe.
Right. And I love that
Sorry.
because it also, no, I'm sorry. I love what you're saying because it redefining intimacy. I think sometimes, I always talk about how I grew up watching a lot of like Disney movies, right? Like or like Happy Ever After, where it's like, oh, if I'm good enough, then I can get love. If I change
Mhm.
something about myself, then I can find love. And I think, being a man growing up, intimacy and sex are very connected, almost like it's one and the same. But there's so many beautiful aspects of intimacy, of cuddling,
Right.
holding your hand. I always love talking with people about terms of endearment. Do you use terms of endearment to bring that sweetness into your relationship? I love what you're saying about being able to say, "Hey, I'm here for you." You say no, you can't do here, I can do here, and we can meet in the middle, so that way you're feeling safe and
Mhm.
supported.
Exactly.
And so it was the program that you offer the inspiration for your book?
No, no,
Okay.
my book came from my own healing journey.
Okay.
I had to find my own way into healing because I was dismissed by pretty much everybody, including modern medicine.
Wow.
And I learned so much about trauma and what really has to happen to heal. And I wanted to share what I've learned with the world.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the book? We have a few minutes left. I would love to hear, I would love to the audience to hear a little bit more about this. So it's your self discovery in a way through trauma
In a
healing?
way, yes. Well, it's technically a trilogy. I'm working on the second one right now. The trilogy is Journey to Yourself, and book one is How to Heal from Trauma.
Oh, wow.
And it starts with my story, but my book is not the whole story of me. My story is
Okay.
just a little bit. And the rest is where I unravel trauma. I demystify it. I take aspects of my story to explain how people may feel in certain situations. I rip trauma apart and make it make sense so that we don't have to be afraid of it anymore. We understand what needs to happen to release it. I have journaling techniques. I have fun exercises. Well, I wouldn't say fun, but interesting
Right.
exercises. I have room for
Right.
notes.
Yeah.
I ask challenging questions
I love that.
so that you really can start on your own healing journey with the knowledge that I've gained on mine.
And so would you recommend that for individuals, couples, everyone who's experienced trauma?
It's written for trauma survivors, but I
Okay.
also have a lot of readers who live with trauma survivors, and they read that to understand the behavior of their partner, family member, friend better. So they are better equipped to work through, let's say, triggers that they may have,
Right.
things like that.
Well, I think
So
I can't wait to check this out because I have to tell you, I have a really difficult time finding good books for people who have loved ones who are suffering from trauma. It's almost it's I mean, it's usually what I have found in my study in my research is very specific PTSD, war or like military related type trauma,
yeah.
which doesn't always fit everyone, as we know. So I can't wait to pick this up and to be able to look through it. And I love books that give the opportunity to write reflection questions all in one place because that helps the healing, right?
Yes, it does. And you can later look back at it and see, wow, I really changed a lot.
Right,
Because transformation isn't subtle.
right.
Healing isn't subtle. It's like the little things that we do. Before we know it, we feel completely different. And by the way, that modality that I use, traumatic incident reduction, it
Yes.
was specifically designed for people with deep trauma and PTSD. So this modality really helps release PTSD for good.
Okay, and that's part of your program that you offer for
Yes.
couples. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
It can be as an individual standalone modality or part of the program.
Okay. And if people were interested in connecting with you, Sandra, is that something that's possible? Do you do virtual or is it just in
No, I do virtual.
okay. Kind of open the door, right? It's kind of nice, right? Because people around the world, that's what I love about it. Like that's why I love coaching is I can help, if they don't need therapy, but they need something else, we can connect and help
Yes,
people from all over.
exactly. Plus the bonus, you can sit in your PJ pants and no one's going to see it.
Oh my God, yes, thank you. Yes. Or you can just or it's so nice when you're done. I'm sorry, like you can take your dog out, like, or you can just do a load of laundry. You can
Yeah,
have, I mean that's joking, but it's also that self-care piece because this work isn't easy. What you're doing and
that's
what we
true.
do, it's heavy, and I love working with couples. We talked a little bit before we started of I love working with couples as well because it's such a beautiful relationship
Mm,
and
it
to
is.
see the resilience that people have and then when trauma it's almost like another person in the relationship of how do we integrate this in a gentle loving
Mm,
way so we get to have the relationship that we dreamed of and we deserve.
I love that.
So if people wanted to connect with you, what is the and I'll put this all in the show's notes, how can people connect with you, Sandra?
Well, I guess the easiest, if you would like a free consultation to chat, is through my website, riseaboveyourstory.com.
Okay.
The first button you see will get you to book your free consultation. Other than that, you can find me on Facebook under Rise Above Your Story. on LinkedIn under Sandra Cooze. Now, I do have an Instagram account, but I'm not really on there.
It's-
So if you send me a message there, I'm not going to get it until months later. So please don't.
There's so many platforms. You have to choose
Yes.
the one that works for you. That's wonderful. So as we kind of wind down on our Friday night episode tonight, Friday Night Feels, what is one piece of advice or one nugget of knowledge that you would like people to walk away with tonight who listen to this episode?
Well, One Piece. Oh, there's so many. Especially for couples, love each other. You chose each other. So love each other.
Love it. I love it. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for coming. It's been such a joy getting to hear everything that you're doing, what you're offering, and you'll definitely have to come back when your trilogy develops. I love trilogies. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. I would love that. Well, I
Congratulations.
hope the next one is getting, well, I hope the next one is coming out this year. I'm working on it
Awesome.
feverishly.
Right. Well, congratulations, because the work you're doing is going to help couples in so many different ways. So you're doing beautiful work.
Thank you. So do you.
Thanks. And I hope you come back to Friday Night Feels so we can pick up, because there's still so much more we could talk about. I would love to know more about all of this trauma component that you do to help people heal trauma. I would love to get into that sometime.
I would love to.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Great. Well, I hope everyone that watches has a wonderful weekend. If you're in the States, I hope you have a safe and happy 4th of July, and we will see you next time on Friday Night Feels. Have a good night, everyone.